Greetings. My name is Mike Levis, and I'm an instructor with the Mountain Hood Ski Patrol Avalanche Program. The topic of this presentation is self and companion rescue. Much of this will be a review of material you learned in Avalanche Level 1. We'll start with a review of self-rescue, then move on to companion rescue. The emphasis in Level 2 is on rescue leadership, being able to take charge when the need presents itself. The corollary to this is understanding when and how to be a good follower when that is the appropriate role. As we stressed in Avi 1, the golden rule in self-rescue is don't get caught in an avalanche. It's much better never to have to use any of the techniques we're going to discuss in this module. Having said that, there are some techniques that may help if you are unfortunate enough to get caught. In this module, we will review briefly some precautions you can take when crossing a slope that you suspect can slide. We'll then discuss steps to take to escape an avalanche if caught and things you can do to increase your odds of survival if you can't escape. So what if your route takes you across a slope that looks suspect? What should your plan be to minimize risk? The best choice should be to look for an alternate route. Avoiding risk is the best form of risk minimization. If there are no viable alternatives, then make sure you pick a route that everyone in the group can ski. Having a team member get sketched out and stop while traversing a suspect path increases risk significantly. Make sure you have a safe staging area out of the slide path. Make sure you've identified escape routes and make sure everyone understands the point of no return. Make sure everyone is geared up appropriately. Bundle up in the clothes you want to be buried in, hood on, snug up those pack straps, and remove any straps to your gear. For example, wrist strap for your poles. Make sure your skis have releasable bindings. Now is a good time to double check transceivers, make sure that they're on transmit and are stowed someplace where they won't get dislodged in a slide. Make sure your Avalon mouthpiece is in and airbags are ready with the trigger in your hand. Lastly, make sure everyone in the group knows the plan and has checked each other's gear. So now you're ready to go. This slide shows an example of how to cross a suspect slope. Cross high and fast, one at a time, using the same tracks if possible. Go from safe point to safe point. All other members of the party should have eyes on the person traversing. So in spite of all these precautions, a slide occurs and you get caught. What should you do? First, remember our golden rule, don't get caught. However, if it appears that you're going to get caught, there are some things you can do that may increase your chances of survival. Note, all of these techniques are really focused on making you easier to find. They involve trying to get to the surface, creating a breathing space, and minimizing trauma. Shout out. Let the others in your party know. If you can ski to the side out of the slide path, do it. If you feel you're getting caught, get rid of gear, for example poles, and try to swim to the side with feet downhill. Keep your head up and protected. Make yourself as large as possible. And the airbag is great at this. Try and push off the bed surface to force yourself to the top of the sliding layer. Close your mouth to keep snow out. As the slide slows, put your arm across your face to create an airspace across your mouth to breathe. As the slide shows, try and get closer to the top of the slide layer. Thrust an arm up to the surface if possible. When the slide stops, if possible, dig yourself out. Otherwise, try and conserve energy. Yell if you hear rescuers nearby. This slide shows a picture of the many things we just discussed. Note that the techniques for self-rescue change as the victim progresses down the slide. This does not mean you should necessarily follow this sequence. If you're caught, do anything necessary to get out of the slide. As you can see at the top, the skier is trying to get out of the slide by escaping to the side. As the slide progresses and the skier is knocked down, the victim tries to swim upstream against the slide or tries to self-arrest to avoid being swept downhill. As the victim nears the bottom of the slide path, Efforts shift to trying to get near the surface. So we've discussed some tips to try and survive if you get caught in an avalanche. However, we need to be realistic about these efforts. Recall our avalanche survival statistics as shown in the graph on the right. Something on the order of 25% of people caught in an avalanche are killed by trauma prior to burial. For those not killed by trauma outright, the survival rate drops to 50% after 15 to 20 minutes of burial. There is some evidence to suggest struggling to stay on top helps. This reduces burial depth and should reduce burial time once you're found. Unfortunately, many of the other techniques may be good in theory, but very hard to do in practice. If you're caught in an avalanche, most likely you'll be tossed around uncontrollably in the turbulent flow. You will inhale what surrounds you, snow. Any opening, mouth, ears, nose, etc., will get packed with snow. As the flow slows, it sets up like concrete very quickly, so movement becomes very difficult. And all this happens very quickly. If you've ever been in an auto crash, think about what happened. Were you able to react? What would you have done if you did not have airbags or seatbelts? The text in red at the bottom of the graph gives some data from real avalanche accidents. So your best technique for self-rescue is just don't get caught in an avalanche. Let's move on and discuss companion rescue. When we talk about companion and group rescue, we're talking about two scenarios. Companion rescue is someone in your group gets caught in an avalanche. What do we do? Group rescue is the scenario where we encounter another group who has been caught in an avalanche and we will attempt to assist in some way with the rescue. In both cases, we are limited to using only the resources we have on hand, either in our group or the group we're trying to assist. As you recall from previous modules, time is of the essence. In both of these scenarios, the avalanche victims will have a much better chance of survival if we can dig them out using the resources on scene. Waiting for additional resources to arrive usually means waiting hours, and the chance of a positive outcome is greatly reduced. So let's start with a review of basic AVI rescue equipment. As you've learned in previous modules, rescue equipment has progressed tremendously over the last 10 years. Beacons have more functions that, if used properly, should result in locating victims more quickly. AVI airbags have reduced the depth of burials and saved lives. However, as you learned in human factors, as equipment improves to reduce risk, people tend to develop a false sense of security and actually take greater risks. Taking greater risks offsets any benefits you may get from equipment improvements. The basic rescue equipment that should be carried by each member of your party are beacon, probe, and shovel, full stop. No one should leave the parking lot without these. In addition, there should be at least 2 first aid kits in your group. As we mentioned at the start, when we talk about companion and small group rescue, we're talking about a scenario where we're only using the resources on hand for any rescue efforts. As we go through the material that follows, we want to keep some key principles in mind. First, think scene safety. We don't want to create additional victims as we attempt the rescue. Second, time is of the essence. Remember, 50% survival after 15 to 20 minutes. Every minute counts. You're dealing with a drowning victim. Third, every rescue effort needs a leader. This should be something you've discussed in your pre-trip planning. And lastly, everyone has a role to play in a rescue. Almost by definition, companion and small group rescue scenarios are resource constrained. If you don't know what your role is, ask the leader. The graph on this slide, I think, captures the fundamental difference between companion small group rescue and a larger organized rescue. The companion rescue is much more resource limited, but the goal is to get the victim out in 15 minutes or less. The organized rescue scenario has many more resources, search and rescue teams, dogs, reco transceivers, and so forth, but at the cost of time. It can take hours before an organized rescue resources get on scene. Too often this exercise is a body recovery and not a rescue. So let's go through a companion rescue process. As we mentioned earlier, it's critical that someone step up and lead the effort. The leader needs to stand back and take in the big picture and formulate a plan. The leader should quickly assess any remaining hazards. Is the scene safe? Rescue efforts should not proceed until it's safe to do so without endangering any members of the rescue party. Each member of the rescue team should immediately turn their transceiver to search mode or off. The leader should designate one safe area as an equipment cache zone. All backpacks, extra rescue gear, and so forth should be placed in the equipment area. It's very important not to contaminate the search area. A great amount of confusion can result when a piece of equipment, a glove for example, is found in the search area, and no one can say if it's a clue or it belongs to one of the rescuers. Once the leader has determined the scene is safe, take an inventory of resources and set up the equipment staging area. The next step is to do an immediate search. The efficiency of the immediate search can determine if the victim survives or not. Remember, time is of the essence. Take the time to get a good first impression of the scene. How large is the area to be searched? Can any areas be ruled out? Are there any clues visible that should be probed? Depending on the size of the area to be searched, the leader should designate 1 or 2 rescue team members to begin a beacon search using the beacon search techniques we've discussed in AVI Level 1. Be efficient, thorough, and methodical. Other team members should be assigned to probe the last seen area. More on this shortly. Any clues or likely cachement areas. It's really important to identify a last seen area if possible. This will allow the search area to be reduced. If a last seen area is identified, mark it and probe around it. If you can identify a last seen area, can you project, based on the terrain and slide path, the path a victim may have followed? Based on this possible trajectory, are there possible cachement points that should be spot probed? This slide shows an example of catchment points. For example, a slide going over a bridge or a stand of trees that survive the slide are ideal cache points to check. Look for clues. Gloves, skis, and ski poles should all be spot probed. They may be attached to a victim. This again reinforces the importance of keeping the search area free of rescuer gear. Do not contaminate the search area. It's also a good idea to stop periodically and call out the victim's name and listen for a response. Note, other than this activity, everyone should keep quiet. The victim might be calling out, and you'll miss it if you're talking. If the victims are not wearing beacons, and you have probed all likely catchment points and clues without success, you may have to resort to a probe line. Probe lines are very time-consuming and are usually an indication of a not-so-positive outcome. Probe lines should only be used when all other options have been exhausted and there are enough resources to actually make a probe line. Establish probe lines based on last seen area and clues to minimize the amount of area to be probed. We'll talk more about probe lines in the organized rescue module. So let's consider the scenario where you and your group come across another group that has been caught in an avalanche. You offer to help. So what are some of the considerations in this scenario? There still needs to be a leader. If the other team has a search underway with a leader running the show, you can offer the resources of your team to help and accept the existing leadership. Or you can offer to take over the leadership role if you have more experience. Whatever you decide, make the decision quickly. Time is of the essence. In any event, you and your group should quickly assess scene safety. Can you help without endangering yourselves? Can you even get to the scene of the avalanche safely? You should not try and assist if it jeopardizes you and your team. If you take over as leader, there's some key questions you're going to want to ask the other party or witnesses to the event. What was the last seen area? How many victims are there? Were they wearing beacons? When did the accident occur? What kind of gear were the victims using? Skis versus snowboards, for example. Can the witness identify any of the gear in the slide path? Can the witness confirm that the clues belong to the victims? What is the level of training and experience of the remaining members of the other party? Can they assist in the search? Now we can implement the immediate search as we discussed previously. Make sure all members of the other party or witnesses have turned their beacons off. Mark the LSA, last seen area. Probe clues. Assign 1 or 2 people to do a beacon search. As you can see, the biggest difference between a companion search and a search for victims from another party is the amount of information you'll want to gather up front. You would normally have all of this info if this was a member of your own group that was buried. A big consideration is if and when to call for outside help. As the slide indicates, there are pros and cons to consider. Some of the reasons to delay sending for outside help are obviously the time until help arrives. But also sending for outside help will reduce your pool of resources available for immediate search efforts. Also, there's some risk to those going to get help. Some reasons not to delay sending for help include the search area is large and your resources are few. The weather is turning bad or night is coming. You've unburied the victim, but he or she has serious injuries that you're not equipped to handle. You've been searching for a while and have not been able to find the victim. If you're going to send someone to get help, they really only need to go as far as necessary to communicate with emergency services. If you have cell reception, you can call while you're conducting your immediate search without loss of any hand-on resources. Unfortunately, this is not usually the case. So sending someone to get help means they may have to travel some distance until they have a cell signal and can get through. A personal locator beacon does not depend on access to the cell system, and newer models support two-way communications. Sat phones are ideal, but they're expensive, and most groups will not have one. So practically, what makes sense when considering requesting for outside help? The goal should be timely activation of outside rescue services without sacrificing any on-site resources. So if you have a cell signal, initiating outside rescue while starting your immediate search would be reasonable. The call to outside resources could be canceled if not needed. Or you could delay activating outside resources until the victim is found and extricated. Resources requested then would depend on the nature of the injuries sustained by the victim. Or sending someone for outside help could be delayed 30 minutes until after the immediate search is conducted. This list is not by any means exhaustive. I'm sure you can think of other options. However, each has its plus and minuses. How are you going to decide? So let's discuss some common mistakes made in avalanche rescue. The most significant mistake, in my opinion, is not assigning a leader. No leader means all team members are doing their own thing and the situation quickly dissolves into a cluster. The other significant mistake we see is that others in the group don't follow the instructions the leader has given. This is not really the place for freelancing. If you're a member of the search team and have questions, ask the search leader ASAP. Other common mistakes are lack of a methodical approach, lack of consideration for scene safety, and failure to mark the last seen area and clues. Some more common mistakes. Failure to mark avalanche debris boundaries. Failure to mark flanks, last seen area, and other key boundaries means more time will be wasted searching areas where there's no possibility of finding the victim. A huge issue is ineffective transceiver searches. The biggest mistake is not having all transceivers in search mode. This mistake will cause great confusion and waste a lot of time. Another mistake, particularly in large slides, is coarse search parameters beyond the range of the transceiver. In this case, searchers are usually spread too far apart, and zones between searchers are not being covered completely. Failure to properly mark and search clues is another area that can cost lives. The glove sticking out may have a hand in it. If you would have probed the clues, you would have found the victim quickly. More common mistakes. All of these mistakes, poor probing technique, not positively identifying which victims own which clues, not using clues to establish potential trajectory, etc., all impact the likelihood of a successful outcome. You will all be practicing small group rescue in our scenarios. You will probably see most of these errors being made at one time or another. Make them in practice so you don't make them when it really matters. So that brings us to the end of this module. Your assignment now is to watch the video listed on this slide and be ready to discuss at our next class. Thanks for your time today.